Hey guys, Andy back here from Mediocre Hobbies, bringing you the first painting video involved with the new Horse Heresy game coming out. So obviously they're re-releasing the Horse Heresy miniature game. They're taking it away from kind of the Forge World side of things and bringing it more to the mainstream. And we have now seen the massive launch box that they have showed off. I think it went live for me yesterday. We could see it with, you know, the 40 Marines, the Terminators, the tanks, Dreadnought, characters, the whole shebang. So I'm of course going to be doing a bunch of videos based around these miniatures, showing you guys how to paint up a bunch of different legions, tanks, the whole shebang. But I thought I would start somewhere a little more interesting than a basic Marine. And for my first video, I am painting up the mad Primarch Konrad Curze of the Night Lords. So if you watched a bunch of my videos before, you will know that my channel is all about getting things done kind of quickly, easily. They're very achievable results. So for the kind of average painter, I know Primarch miniatures can be quite a daunting prospect. They've got a high price point, and they're going to be the centerpiece and focal point of your army. So if you're going to play a game, everyone's going to be gawking at your Primarch to see what you did and how you did it. So I'm going to be doing a bunch of videos on different Primarchs, hopefully showing you guys how to do them in a manner that should kind of dispel the fear in them and get you a nice looking miniature quickly and efficiently. So and stick around and see if we manage to pull it off with Konrad Curze, and enjoy. So the project starts much like any other project with the assembly. So I glued it together to this point. I left his head, his cape off separate pieces. I glued them to little bases and stuff to help me work on them. I kind of concocted this little base, and then I used one of the Games Workshop part base thingies, which was the first time I used it. It was actually really good. And of course, this big beautiful scenic base. I added some magnets to that so it held nice and tight. I did my traditional airbrushing spray can primer, which is the Chaos Black all over, and then the kind of Zenithal of Grey Seer. I did that on all the extra pieces, so the cape, the head, and the big scenic base. But for Curze, it was a coat of Chaos Black and then a coat of silver, because that's how I do my Night Lord's armor. I start from a metallic base coat. I do a lot of my contrasted Space Marine armors the same way. It starts from a silver. So we jump straight in with Leviathan Blue Contrast, and we're going to apply this to all of the armor on the miniature. This is obviously a Forge World model. It's quite a few years old now at this stage, and kind of picking out which parts of the detail are armor and which are actually like embellishments and stuff can be a little bit tricky. And to be honest, I found it really difficult to find any high-res images online of other people's work to go off. Even the 360 on the website, the Forge World website, didn't help me an awful lot. So you will have to take your time with this and basically lather it on all over the armor panels. And when it comes to the gold trim bit afterwards, you'll probably just cover up some of the blue. But that is a-okay. It is doing the layering of the gold part that was the most difficult to figure out where all the gold goes. But yeah, if you haven't done any power armor with contrast yet, the idea is to overload your brush and basically put on quite a thick coat one part at a time. So I do from like the knee down on this leg, kind of lather it all on, and then pull away any of the excess or any of the pooling parts. So that gives it a chance to sit really nicely on the miniature, dry nice and smooth, and it works really well. Don't worry, we'll be layering up later on anyway, so it's not a huge deal. But yeah, it's definitely the best thing to do is to overload the brush and then work one part of the miniature at a time. He is quite a beastly model. I've actually owned this miniature now since he came out, which I suppose is 5, 6, 7 years ago now, maybe even a little bit longer than that. So I'm delighted to finally have pulled him out and I'm getting some paint on him. I was quite pleased with the final result. And yeah, I do hope to get him on table soon. So this is what the Leviathan Blue looks like dried across the armor. And from here, like I said, we're going to go on to kind of trimming all of the armor. So Retribute Armor Gold, and anywhere that there's trim on this miniature, you want to get a nice coat of gold. This is the bit where I struggle to find all of the bits and pieces, so I hope you guys can find some better images than I did. If not, just trust your gut. Anywhere that looks like it's trim is probably trim. I mean, these are the finest suits of power armor the Imperium has ever seen, the ones that are adorned by the Primarchs. So yeah, there was even these like arched embellishments around, like 2 of them on each shin plate, and I didn't know what parts of them were supposed to be gold and what parts were. So I ended up going back and doing the arches and those in gold, and I left the center bits, which were like a mosaic design, I just left them as part of the armor color as the blue. I'm sure that probably wasn't the correct thing to do, but at the end of the day it looked pretty good. And I was happy enough with the final result. But you will see now in a second just the sheer amount of gold that is actually on even Konrad Curze, the Mad Primarch. He definitely doesn't shy away from bling. And there you have it. I mean, there's a lot. Even these gnarly spikes going down his back were gold trimmed. After that, we're going to move on to a bit of bloodletter contrast, and this is just for the Legion symbol on his right shoulder. Make sure you don't do the skull in the center of the symbol. That is not meant to be red. It is just the wings. The skull in the middle is supposed to be bone. We will get to that in a minute. So it's a very quick step, just a bit of red contrast on both of the wings on the design. I love the Night Lord's chapter symbol. I think it's really cool. So next we're going to move on to a bit of Aggaros Dunes, and we're going to use this on anything that's supposed to be like gnarly old skin. It's going to make up the base coat of that. So I applied that to his human skin loincloth thing that he has now. But basically, if I'm doing something on one part, you assume that I'm doing it on all the other parts. So for instance, while I'm doing the skin loincloth, I of course put the Aggaros Dunes all over the skin cloak that goes on his back as well. So any stages I do on one, assume that I'm doing it on the other as well. And with that, we pretty much have all of our base coats done. So what we're going to do now is give the miniature an all over shade of Colia Green shade. This is the stage where I always have to pause and tell you guys to trust the process. I know it kind of seems a bit crazy what I'm doing. I promise you'll work out in the end. Colia Green shade is going to be a really nice shade over the gold and the blue armor. Even the metallics, it's going to give that slight blue tint too, which will be kind of reminiscent of Night Lord's armor. I do cut in a second showing you guys the Aggaros Dunes on the cape, because obviously I forgot to show you previously, and I was afraid people were going to be wondering about that stage. But that clip should have been before this one. So we did the cloak in the Aggaros Dunes, and then that itself also got a full coat of the Colia Green shade over the top of that, which gave this really mauled, horrible old skin color, and I think it looked so good. Layering up afterwards was awesome. So you can see here's the plain cloak. Aggaros Dunes got over that, and you won't see me putting the Colia Green shade on, but trust me, a coat of Colia Green shade went all over the cloak as well. I did notice about maybe 90% through the process in one of the images that at the very bottom of the skin cloak there's actually a bit of nice cloak showing through, and they had painted it in red. I saw this much too late into the process to go and fix it, so that's something to worry about later. Hey guys, it's about halfway through the video now. I'm waiting for washes and basing material and all sorts of bits and pieces to dry. While it is drying, I thought I'd take the opportunity to chat to you guys very quickly. I just wanted to say thank you guys for the continued support on the Mediocre Hobbies YouTube channel. I passed 12,000 subscribers yesterday, so I'm quite proud of that, and that is all thanks to you guys watching my videos, following along, subscribing, commenting, and the whole shebang. The algorithm still does tell me that only about kind of 25% to a third of the people who see my videos actually hit the subscribe button. So make sure if you do enjoy the content, you're enjoying this video so far, make sure you hit the subscribe button and join along. If you're getting real value of what I do and you want to continue your support even further, there's a number of ways you can do that, either becoming a member on the YouTube channel or joining my Patreon. There's links to all that below. And you get a bunch of benefits for the Patreon, like a Discord server, and also you get to choose the content that I'm creating. So for instance, my Patreons decided which was the first Primarch that I did, and the vote was for Konrad Curze. So if you want to be involved in that moving forward, the links are below. Thank you very much guys, and let's get back to painting. So this is where we're at after the shades have dried. Before I started talking there, I was just briefly talking about the cape and having that red material on the bottom of the cape. If you want to, you can of course go in and paint the bottom of the cape with red. I just left it as flayed skin. I don't think you will notice it one bit. So at this point I wanted to start layering up the armor panels, but the base was kind of throwing my eye off. I didn't like seeing all of the weird silver blocks next to the armor, so I quickly gave the all of the stonework its base coat of Mechanica Standard Grey, just a base coat, like I said, just to dull everything down. And while I was doing it on one part, I might as well follow through and do it on all the other parts as well. So the big scenic base got its first coat of paint, even though we won't come back to this now for a few steps. The amount of silver that was on the main part was driving me nuts. So for the first layer, we're going to go with the traditional Night Lord's Blue. Surprise, surprise, Night Lord's Blue is really good paint for painting Night Lords. And my 40k Night Lords army, after this layer, I called the armor complete. I really like the super dark look. In all the Aaron Dembski Bowden novels, they talk about them being in midnight clad and being like terror specialists coming out of the night. So I want them to be as dull and dark as possible. But after I'd finished layering up the first part with just Night Lord's Blue, then I went back and started looking at the artworks and the images I could see. Even the cover of the Primarch novel, he had a much brighter, more vibrant blue. So in order to take that up to the next step, I just did a 50-50 mix of the Kaldor Sky and Night Lord's Blue paints together. And this provided me with what I thought was the exact color to match the armor that was shown in the artwork on the cover of that book. And I was actually really pleased with how it turned out. I was a bit nervous at about this stage. I was like, oh, this is quite significantly brighter than the color underneath it. I really don't want this to look like an ultramarine. But as you can see, as I started applying it to more of it, it's definitely not that ultramarine's tone. It's definitely got those like dark blue into a tiny bit of purple, which is that kind of midnight color I was talking about. I'll flip the miniature around now in a second in my hand, and you can see the difference between like the top half blue and the bottom half. And I definitely think that the bottom half pops so much more, and it looks really, really nice. So when layering that up, just make sure to try and leave all of those dark recesses with that Collier green shade wash, all of the ribbed armor that he has. You're just trying to paint the higher parts of it and leave everything lower down as dark as possible. At this stage as well, you want to be super careful not to hit any of the gold parts, and we will be layering those up with some silver in a minute. But for now, just hit the blue. And yeah, to me, this is the armor parts complete. I'm delighted with how this looks. If I put this on a table and charged it across, that's the armor color that I would want. So, Lead Belcher. You may have seen this in a couple of other my videos, but I do really like this technique of the layering up Retributor Armor Gold with just a few dots of silver. So I'm not going for like solid brush strokes. As you can see, I'm just tapping the brush along and just getting those little focal points of silver across the gold. It changes the whole feel of the miniature. It turns that like bright gold into this kind of muted brassy color, which I think suits the kind of Night Lord style down to the ground. They wouldn't have something that's super shiny and reflective anyway. We then went on to Zandri Dust and base coated all of the bones, the skulls, anything where there's some remains left. So for instance, as I did it on this step, I went back to the cape and there's like a whole string of bones hanging out of that, and I layered those up with that as well. Next we're going to hit all of the disgusting cape and flayed skin with a coat of Cadian flesh tone. And just like I was talking about with the armor, I'm going to leave all the little nooks and crannies that really dark color, but all of the higher points, all of the flayed skin masks, the faces that have been taken off as victims, I'm going to hit that with a bit of Cadian just to brighten it up again and make it stand out. Later on I'm going to do something with Blood for the Blood God, which changes it all up and it really makes it look kind of grotesque. This is the cape that I was talking about earlier, where I had the Agros Dunes layered up with the Collier green shade, and it did give that like horrid, sickly, old skin. You can imagine how bad that cape smells, which just adds to the kind of terror tactics that a Night Haunter would use. You can smell death off him as he approaches you, and it's just not exactly your ideal opponent in a fight. But just like before, I quickly went around and layered up just to kind of get a few more pinky tones back into the flesh and just leave that rotten, decayed sense underneath, as if you keep layering over the top of his cape fresh skin over gnarly old skin. And this is the result. From here onto Shafty Bone, and this is just to layer up all of those bone parts, so the skulls hanging off of the cape, those bones there, you can see the string of bones I was talking about earlier. I'm just going to quickly layer those up, and he's got kind of two cadavers hanging off one of his shoulder pauldrons. They also got hit with a coat of the Shapti bone here. You don't need to be too careful. We're going to go over most of this with Blood for the Blood God in a few minutes. And that really adds to the effect that these kills are fresher than you would like them to be. The Fist on Red base coat was used to layer up the beautiful Legion shoulder design. And just those big wings. Very quick, very simple coat, trying to leave the deep contrast red in the recesses. But then all of the top parts got hit with Mephiston Red. Now it's time to actually tackle this base. I probably should have done this earlier in the process, as I had to wait an inordinately long amount of time for the amount of Astro Granite that I put on the base to dry. And it really put this video on some time constraints. So lesson learned for the future, make sure you get your basing material on the night before you need it, so it has lots of time to dry. That would be my biggest tip for you guys going away from this video, is to give your basing material a long time to dry. So while that's drying, I thought I would get on to the face. And just like I said at the start of the video, this was a coat of Chaos Black with the Zenithal coat of Grey Seer. I then hit all the skin parts with a coat of Druchii Violet. This is because I want all of the deep recesses to have that like slight purple tinge, where he's got that sickly skin that doesn't see the light very often, just kind of the way he likes it. And this really does help to add that kind of chaotic, manic effect to his face and his skin. From here, we actually layered it up with Cadian Fleshtone. I forgot to show the pot there, but that we are now layering up with Cadian Fleshtone. Being very careful. I've got a really fine pointed brush. Like I said, certain parts of the miniature are a little bit more difficult than others. This is his face. This is something that people will look at. So please take your time with this. Much like applying the silver over the gold, I'm just kind of doing these little dot layer points, so that if I make a mistake, it's not a huge mistake. It's not a whole big brush stroke across the forehead or anything. Just these little dots to build up the color. I then mixed Pallid Witch Flesh and the Cadian Fleshtone together to get the highlight color, just because once again I wanted to push it more towards that someone who doesn't see the light very often. It's pallid and it's sickly. I was really pleased with this. When I finished layering it up, I was like, I kind of did a pretty good job on this. So I took a picture of it and posted on my Instagram almost immediately. So if you want to check out a nice high-res picture of the face, you can always jump over to my Instagram, same name, Mediocre Hobbies, and see how it turned out. It really did look kind of crazy, psychotic, the kind of guy you don't want to meet in a dark alleyway. In order to get his luscious black locks, all I did was use a coat of contrast Black Templar. And I applied that as a single nice thick coat over his hair. Because I already Zenithal primed it, it will just be a beautifully shaded thing that the higher strands will shine through a little bit of the white. But the deeper parts will go straight black and look really good. Now it's on to Agrok's Earthshade, and we apply this all over his bases and the runes that he is stomping up and down. I know it looks pretty atrocious right now, but give me a minute to get some dry brushing onto it, starting with Dawnstone, just to build up that colour. I thought he would be kind of stomping around old urban cities, nothing gaudy, nothing like marble or anything like that. Not in any pompous palaces, so I kept it as this nice muted grey. Because he's such a dark miniature, I didn't want the base to overshadow him by going for like bright white marbles or anything like that. So the Dawnstone is the first dry brush that I applied to the entire base. All of the stonework, all of the gravel, all the Astro Granite, and then I also did it to all of the rocks that the miniature itself is standing on. Same exact technique. Quick, dirty, dry brush. This is the first layer. And then we go on to Administratum Grey and do basically the same thing all over dry brush, but we're going to go about 50% pressure. So all we're trying to do is catch the edges of this base and add to it. I know there's supposed to be 2 dead Soul Auxilium miniatures on the base. I don't think they fit particularly well across the stonework. I think they're kind of a distraction. I've kept them. I still have them in my bits box, and I do intend to use them for something else. But I definitely think I can fit them in a little bit better to a different setting, and I don't want to detract from Night Hunter himself. So here is him all done on his nice grey base. Like I said, because it's quite dull and simple, it makes him pop even more. I also, little touches, I painted the inside of the base black where the miniature sits. For no other reason other than when he's not in it, it looks neater. And here's the entire miniature like based. As you can see, it's quite a lot of real estate for one miniature to take up. But I think because I've done the nice dark greys, he really does pop. In 2 seconds, you're going to see the entire miniature put together as one thing. And that was the first time I seen kind of a Konrad Curze painted in the flesh in front of me. And I was like, this guy's awesome. He definitely fits the bill of being the crazy Primarch. Now for the final step, we're going to move on forward to Blood for the Blood God. I started by being a little bit more reserved applying the Blood for the Blood God. I started to go in between the different like layers of skin as if it's all fresh and it's kind of leaking out. I quickly changed my tune and I eventually gave basically the entire cloak a coat of Blood for the Blood God and his loincloth. But it was a little bit thin. As you can see, my brush doesn't have a lot of Blood for the Blood God on, so it gave this disgusting mottled blood effect. And it worked so well, and I'm so pleased with that final result. And yeah, I eventually just started adding Blood for the Blood God across the base, a few splatters here and there, and of course on his gnarly claws. And after I did that, I was super pleased and I decided to call it there. One of the most important things is to know when your miniature is finished painting before you continue on and push too far and ruin the result. So what can I say? What was my first Primarch experience like? Not nearly as terrifying and bad as I thought it was going to be. You just gotta trust the process, that it is just like any other miniature. Get your base coats on, get a wash on it, do some layering, and then add some technical stuff at the end, i.e. blood or astrogranite and stuff like that. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you guys pull out a Primarch model you maybe bought a couple of years ago and never had the guts to do, or you never ordered it off a website because you were terrified to do it. With the new Horus Heresy game coming up, we know we're going to play a few games of Horus Heresy. We know we're going to have our Primarchs at front and center in the middle of our armies. So thank you guys so much for watching till the end of the video. I hope you learned something. I hope you're either entertained, inspired, or educated. Thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you guys in the next video.